Hey guys, I'm Heather and welcome to my Q1 reading wrap up. That's right, January through March of this year is over, and so are the books that we read in that time frame. If you see me looking down, I wrote down a very rough outline of what I wanted to say in the video. So if you see me looking down, is this. In January, I read 8 books. In February, I read 5, and in March, I read 6 for a total of 19 books. Storygraph does tell me I'm ahead of my goal by 1 book. I'm trying to get 75 by the last day of December. And what's curious is looking back at 2023, I had read 17 by this point. So I'm doing just a little bit better than I did in 2023, and I ended the year with 72 there. So we're on pace to have great success. As far as a page count breakdown, in January, I read 3,696 pages. February, I read 2,608. And in March, I read 2,578. In total, I read 8,882 pages, whereas in 2023 for Q1, I had read 6,392. So again, we are working on raising our reading stamina and meeting our goals, and as of right now, I'm crushing it as far as comparing it to last year. As far as genre breakdowns, I had read romance, literary fiction, thriller, and fantasy. I had read 2 literary fiction books, 2 thriller books, 5 romance books, and 10 fantasy books, which is completely what I would have expected. No, take that back. Normally by that point, I would have read more thriller books, but I have definitely been in more of a fantasy mood lately, and my tastes are definitely shifting back to my one true love, which is fantasy. Especially now that romantasy is more accessible and widely accepted, I kind of lumped fantasy and romantasy together. But I am just in the mood for chunky fantasy. Whether it is high stakes epic fantasy or whether it is more romance centered, I just want all the fantasy right now. So give it to me, I'll read it. So random Storygraph statistics. I have read most of my books physically at this point. That does include tandem reading, like when you're reading a book physically and also listening to it on audio. Because I own the books physically, that's how I mark it on Storygraph, and so that's how it tracks it. And if I have found the audiobook, it's either through Everand or my library, and I'm not counting it as that if I own the physical book and I'm using the physical book in front of me. So most books have been read physically. I have read most of my pages on the weekend, which again, totally makes sense. If this is your first time hanging out with me, I am a middle school math teacher, and I be tired when I get home from work. It is a good day if I can read 50 pages at the end of a school day. Most of the books that I have read have been between 300 and 499 pages. Again, this makes sense because most of the fantasy books I've been reading are a little bit on the shorter side for fantasy, but I'm hoping to change that going forward because I do have some chunky ones I want to get to, especially in the summer when I have uninterrupted time. So let's see if we can bring my most pages to above 500 for Q2. Let's get into talking actual books now. So my average rating for Q1 was a 3.97, and I think that most of us could agree I can go ahead and round that up to a 4-star. I feel like that's a pretty successful average rating as of right now, and most of the books that I have read have been 4 stars. It's just those outliers bringing the average down. Speaking of outliers, let's talk about my lowest rated book of Q1. And when I tell you I hated this book, and I am not on BookTube to spread negativity or to bring authors down or tell you not to read their books. That's not me. But what I can say is this book did absolutely nothing for me. That was A Winter in New York by Josie Silver. There was not a single redeeming quality about this book, at least for me. I read this for my teacher book club, and there were people at book club that really enjoyed this book. So I'm not saying that it is an awful book for everyone, but it was awful for me. I just felt like the book was built on miscommunication, and I could rant about this all day. Y'all need to know that I'm a type 9, and it's really hard for me to sit here and talk about something negatively knowing that it might incite conflict in one of my viewers' hearts. If you loved this book, I promise I'm so happy for you. I'm glad that it got into the hands of somebody that will love it and cherish it, but it also got into the hands of someone who despised every second that they were listening to it and ended up hate listening to it in the span of one day. And I'm sorry, and I'm done talking about it. Bye. Let's switch to my most surprising read. My most surprising read is a book that I thought that I would like just fine, but that I wouldn't love it and I also wouldn't hate it. And that was Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I thought that this was just gonna be a silly, forgettable time. But I really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It had what I would call a hybrid of Princess Bride meets Shrek humor. And if that sounds like something that you would like, then you should pick this book up for sure, 100%, and you should go watch her TikToks because this whole book was based off of TikTok skits that she started making. It was just really cute and charming, and it actually had some depth other than the quirky humor, and I'm really excited for the second book to be published. Very shocking, very surprising, very happy I picked this one up. Now let's talk about my 5-star reads of Q1. 2 of these books are by the same author. The first book that I gave 5 stars was the first book I read in 2024. Just got off to a really good start, and that was Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. I had spent all of 2023 reading through the Throne of Glass series. I tried to finish it in 2023, but it didn't happen. This book is chunky, and I loved every second, even the seconds that I was angry and even the seconds that I was bawling my eyes out at this book. And by the time you've made it to this puppy, you just can't deny that everything was masterfully plotted from the beginning. Like, I think Taylor Swift wrote Mastermind about Sarah J. Maas writing Throne of Glass. Hot take. The second 5-star book I read was House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. We're noticing a trend with SJM's finales to series, but I really, really loved House of Flame and Shadow. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want to spoil the plot at all, but we love our girl Bryce Quinlan. And then the last 5-star, some of you will see this coming, is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I adore this book. I want to carry this book around and call it my emotional support book, and just like being able to hold it is better than like a weighted blanket. It is a book I will give a hug to. It is a book I will recommend to each and every one of you. If you don't read fantasy, maybe don't start here because it does get a little bit complex, but it's so good. It's really hard to talk about this book, but I'm gonna try and tell you the reasons that I gave it 5 stars.
Beautiful setting and epic world building. Stabby female main character who is on a quest for vengeance. Emotionally competent male main character who is on the search for something. Amazing writing. Illustrations, the way everything came together, the way that this book flops, even though I read it on Kindle.
And that is essentially my Q1 wrap up. Really quick, let's talk about some things I want to see happen in Q2. First of all, I'd like to finish a Wheel of Time book because I'm very, very behind on my friend read with that book. Secondly, I would like to read more sci-fi. Third, I would like to start incorporating more chunky fantasy. You've heard me say it several times throughout this vlog, and I would like to read about 3 to 4 books off of my 24 in 24 list, which is a video I made at the beginning of the year, and I will link that down below if you're curious which books made it on that list. If you watched all the way to the end of the video, instead of leaving me an emoji today, why don't you leave me the book that surprised you the most in Q1, or let me know a book that you would really like to see me read moving forward into Q2. The summer is coming up, which, as I have stated, I have so much more time to devote to reading and really focusing my brain. So I'm open to any and all suggestions of books or video ideas that you might like to see. And I just want you guys to know that I love you so much. The other day I woke up to 900 subscribers. What the heck? You guys are awesome. And my social media, as always, is linked down below. And I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye guys.